right, music fans, welcome back. It is Dave, the real music observer, observing real music in real time for real people, just like you right there, just like yours truly right here. I tuned into this interview yesterday on YouTube. A guy who does kind of what I do, but he does it better. He's more, I would call him more of a newsy kind of guy. I mean, he's got some opinions, but he's not really opinion-based. He's more old school, asking questions, you know, like Dan Rather, except I can listen to this guy talk. And he's better looking than me. He's got a better radio voice. He does really good production on his videos, where I do none, other than the thumbnail. And hey, it's my little intro there. But he had this interview with Jonathan Cain, the keyboard player from Journey. And I was doing a few holy crap Batmans listening to this interview. First of all, the title of this interview is, you know, how do you deal with the negativity thrown at your wife? And then we hear about, like, the prayer is nonpartisan that she does, and, you know, the senators. It was just a bizarre editing thing that happened where, you know, she's known the president for a long time. I just stay in my lane, and then she does her thing, except when I go on the Jim Baker show or when I visit the White House, which he's done a couple more times, just very low profile. Didn't really get a lot of press, and oh well. Yes, he has a First Amendment right to do what he wants to do, and constitutional rights and all that. I get that. But the next thing, though, that really was perplexing, the guy asks him, hey, what about all that stuff that happened last summer between you and Neal? And he answers him and he says, oh, it's fake news. And I'm just like, it's fake news that Neal Schon was tweeting stuff and he was upset about you? This is some sort of make-believe confrontation that didn't exist? Because I was there and I was on the other side. I was on his side at the time. And I got just absolutely obliterated. It was almost kind of weird to see all of the vitriol coming at me because I supported at that time Jonathan Cain, but I've done a complete 180. And yes, see, this is an opinion-based channel. Do I think Cain did stuff wrong? Well, in hindsight, yes, because if you've got a pact within the band that says, A, we're not political, we don't show overt political, you know, favoritism over here, we just play music, and this is where I am as far as what I believe as far as entertainment and musicians. Yes, they can speak out, and yes, they can lose 50% of their audience. I think it's a dangerous thing to do. I think it's a stupid financial move. But sure, it's your right to do it. But to say the complaints or the arguments that you and Neal were having was fake news based on some writer or some reporter who reported on something back in the 1980s, and he got it wrong, or he didn't like your show, or more or less he's saying that it's people like me who blew it up into something that it wasn't. Well, first of all, folks, you'd have to ask Neal Schon if it was nothing. Okay, now I know they're about to tour with Def Leppard, the management. Obviously, everybody wants them to get along and have a great tour. So maybe now isn't the time to, you know, stir up the pot. I can, because this is what I do. But maybe somewhere along the lines, maybe 2/3 through the tour, maybe toward the end of the tour, you can start posing those questions to Neal and say, hey, was your disagreement with John Cain, was that just fake news? Because Neal was doing the tweeting, so then Neal would be the guy creating the fake news. See, I wasn't making Neal say those things. I was just saying, wow, Neal he shouldn't, at the time I said he shouldn't really tweet against his bandmate like that. And then I realized after I really examined the situation that Neal was all alone, and that's why he was doing this, because he was outnumbered between the band and the managers and everybody else who is involved with Journey. This was Neal's only way. Just go directly to the fans and communicate. And I think he's won over the fans. I know you've got a book coming out. The other side has a book already out, rather. And now I hear there's another solo album coming out, which is a non-Christian album. And I just talked about the new song with Arnell, Neal, and Steve Smith, which honestly blows anything I've heard away on the other side. Just making that point. But the fact that he would call this fake news to kind of sort of brush it off speaks to this idea that he's living in maybe a different reality than some of the fans. He talks about haters. I know what he's talking about. I'm not a hater of Jonathan Cain. I'm just trying to, you know, I want the facts, and I have opinions about those facts. And when I hear or see something like this is fake news, I find that ridiculous. I find it just hard to imagine and hard to fathom that Neal Schon just made all of those tweets up and he didn't really mean that stuff, and it was just me taking it out of proportion. And I was on John's side at the time. So go figure, right? All right, I'm done with this video. I'll be back with more. There's always more coming up real soon.